So what in the world does a medieval manuscript have in common with the latest app on your phone? The answer might actually surprise you. In this explainer, we're going to dig into the powerful and often totally overlooked connection between the humanities and the world of design.
To get us started, let's think about this really fundamental question. For centuries, we've basically put all human activities into two big buckets, right? You've got interpreting what things mean, and then you've got making new things. One seems to be all about thinking, and the other is all about doing.
And this is the traditional split we've all been taught to see. Over on one side, you have the humanities, history, literature, philosophy. That's always been the home of interpretation, of asking, what does this mean? And on the other side, you've got design, which we see as the world of making, of asking, how does this work? It's that classic divide between the analyst and the creator.
But what if that division was never really that clear in the first place? The argument we're going to explore today is that this separation we've held on to for so long, it's breaking down. And it's revealing a much more integrated, much more dynamic relationship between making and interpreting. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, so let's just start by tearing down that old definition. Our first big idea is a whole new way of thinking. Design isn't just about making things. It's about making meaning.
Here's that new definition in action. See, design isn't just engineering or making things look good. It's a deeply humanistic practice. And think back to that medieval manuscript for a second. The layout, the materials, the symbols, every single choice was intentionally designed to shape how the reader understood the text, their whole spiritual experience. It was making meaning tangible, which is a lot like how a user interface on an app guides our experience today.
So what this really boils down to is that design is just interpretation that you can see, touch, and interact with. When you design a book or a chair or an app, you are making your interpretation of a problem or an idea physical. You're literally building your argument.
Okay, so if design is a way of thinking, what does that process actually look like? In this section, we're going to explore a couple of key frameworks that really help us understand design as a powerful method for inquiry.
A scholar named Christopher Frayling breaks design research down into three modes. First, you've got research for design. That's the foundational stuff, like a historian doing research for a museum exhibit. Then there's research into design, which is basically critically analyzing existing designs. But the third one, research through design, that's the real game changer. This is where the act of building something, like an interactive map or a digital archive, actually generates new insights that you could not have gotten any other way.
So how do we evaluate a design in these humanistic terms? Robert O'Toole's Fit, Stick, Spread, Grow framework is an amazing tool for this. A good design has to fit its cultural context. It needs to stick around and actually be useful, it should be able to spread to new users, and it has to be able to grow and evolve. See, this isn't about profit, it's a measure of cultural resonance and impact.
Okay, that's enough theory for now, but what does this look like out in the real world? Let's dive into a couple of case studies that show these ideas in action.
Now, here's a fascinating challenge from the Valencian Soundscapes project. They wanted to archive all these endangered regional sounds. But here's the problem. Sound isn't just an audio file. It's tied to a place, a time, a feeling. If you just stick a bunch of audio files in a database, you strip them of all their cultural meaning. So, how do you design a better archive?
The team's solution was just brilliant. They completely reframed the problem. Instead of a boring map with a bunch of pins on it, they designed an interface that let people explore the sounds through the lens of local culture. You could navigate by a calendar of religious festivals. That single design choice transformed the archive from a cold database into a living, breathing cultural narrative.
And if we apply that Fit, Stick, Spread, Grow framework, you can see exactly why it worked so well. It fit the local culture perfectly. It was built to stick around using open source tech. Its model started to spread to other projects, and its design allows it to grow over time. This just goes to show how design decisions are actually arguments about what matters.
All right, let's look at a more speculative example. The Decolonial Futures Lab asked a really big question. How can design help us unlearn colonial modernity? Which is basically a way of saying, how can we question the deep-seated cultural assumptions we inherited from colonial times? They weren't trying to create a product to sell. They wanted to use design to critique the present and imagine totally different futures.
The key thing to get here is that these prototypes weren't supposed to be practical in the usual sense. They were tangible arguments. This communal kitchen, or this AI storyteller,
They were physical thought experiments. They were designed to provoke conversation about how our everyday world is shaped by colonial histories, and more importantly, how it could be redesigned.
So let's pull all of this together. What does it all mean for the humanities? Well, it means there's a whole new toolkit available for exploring the human condition.
Okay, this is where it all just clicks. Check this out. We can map the familiar phases of design thinking directly onto the core practices of a humanities scholar. Empathize? That's just the deep immersion of close reading. Define? That's framing a research question. Prototyping? That's the act of writing, or modeling, or curating. And testing? That's our process of peer review. It's the exact same iterative logic, just with a different vocabulary.
This brings us to a really powerful takeaway. In the humanities, a prototype isn't just some rough draft, it's a form of argument. The way you design a digital archive, what you choose to highlight, what you connect, that makes a claim about history and power. The structure is the argument.
So we can boil this down to 4 key principles for this new humanistic toolkit. First, knowledge isn't just found, it's made. Second, our understanding gets better through cycles of making and reflecting. Third, we think with our hands and our senses, not just with our brains. And finally, and this one is huge, every single design choice is an ethical choice that impacts how people experience the world.
And that leaves us with one last, provocative question. If we accept that our systems of knowledge, our archives, our stories, even our arguments, are all designed, then we have to ask ourselves, what are the values we are encoding in them? And what kind of world, what kind of understanding should we be trying to design next?